Welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. I'm Jenny Olson, and this is always an exciting time of year. We've got summertime activities kind of wrapping up, the boating and the fishing. For the most part, it's kind of wrapping up, and hunting seasons are starting. On this week's show, we're going to take you above the bridge up to the Sault for some walleye fishing. It's actually a tournament that's happening up there, and Jimmy's got some other fun stuff for us this week too. Well, that's right, Jenny. While we were in the Upper Peninsula getting that Sault Ste. Marie story, we were able to get a camera over to the Marquette area and do a story on a spoon manufacturer there. And we're also going to have the first in a two-part series on calling deer on this week's show. So lots of good stuff, lots of variety on this week's show, so you stay tuned. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger. It's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors. Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream, it's a love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Greenstone Farm Credit Services, making recreational land ownership possible across Michigan and northeast Wisconsin. Begin your land financing journey at one of Greenstone's 37 locations or visit greenstonefcs.com. By Meijer, a destination for hunting, fishing, and camping. From bug spray and tents to GPS and gas, Meijer has nearly everything you need to take on nature and get you there. Meijer. By G5 Outdoors, makers of the Quest and Prime bows. Manufactured and designed in Memphis, Michigan, G5 offers archery bows, broadheads, and accessories. On the web at g5outdoors.com. By Country Smokehouse, offering a variety of meat products. Country Smokehouse is located 3 miles south of I-69 on M53, just south of Imlay City. Country Smokehouse is a meat processor, a butcher, and a destination for sportsmen.
Hi, I'm Jordan Brown. We kick off this week's show with another story from the UP. A couple of weeks back, I was in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, tagging along on the Cabela's Masters Walleye Circuit Tournament featuring over 200 boats.
We are out here on the St. Mary's River, getting ready to compete on one of the biggest walleye tournaments in the nation right now, the Masters Walleye Circuit, running in conjunction with the National Walleye or National Team Championship (NTC). There's 201 boats. We're second flight today, so we're backed up a little bit. We got a little waiting to do. We did okay yesterday. We're not out of it. We need a big day today, so. We're focused, we're excited, we're ready to go fishing, try to have some fun, and hopefully bring in some big fish.
And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Time to fish.
You guys don't waste any time around here, do you?
Every second counts, especially with this morning bite fizzling away.
We're trying to catch the very end of the night bite. We got our first 3 fish. in the first hour yesterday. We are going to take advantage. A little cold front last night, so we need to be in the water every second.
After a 20-minute boat ride, we arrived at our destination, a spot these guys had done well at while pre-fishing earlier in the week, using a somewhat unconventional fishing style.
We're using 9.5-foot rods. They cast quite a ways, and they're real rubbery on the end, so we can see a bite long before we can usually feel it. Thought is, I don't know if you noticed there, but I cast kind of almost right straight out. That's on the deep side. This rod is on the shallow side. So what I'm going to do is cast almost behind the boat. And the thought is, see, even though I wasn't in the weeds, what I want to do is we want to fish as big a swath of water as we can. So we fish from our cast all the way to behind the boat. And by casting kind of behind the boat, we're fishing from the surface all the way down to the bottom. So we're not only fishing wide, we're fishing every depth. The thing that we have found over time is these fish like it on what we call the turn. That is when the bait's coming from the side, and all of a sudden when it gets at a certain angle, it'll kind of switch. I'll tell you, that's where probably at least 25% of our bites come from, is on the turn, when that bait switches directions.
One thing became apparent very quickly. We were going to have no trouble catching fish today, but size was going to be an issue. We were catching plenty of walleye and even the occasional keeper, but not the tournament-sized walleye these guys had found earlier in the week. We had no choice but to continue to weed through fish, hoping to find 5 keepers.
This is what we want. Need. I don't know. He's not big, but he might measure.
Come on, buddy.
He's fighting like horses.
We don't have to be until 4:30. The odds are the wind's going to pick up a little bit later. We wouldn't mind picking up 15 inchers. And then have stuff to cull when the bite picks up, when the wind picks up. We're in about 15 feet of water right now. Our mission is to make it till tomorrow. Tomorrow is if you qualify, you get to fish the 3rd day of the Cabela's National Team Championship. That's our mission.
This is tournament fishing. You can't pick the days you fish. You just got to roll with it. Never give up. Nice splash. Well, we're out here. We're on our spot. We got confidence in it yet. I tell you, it's just a cold front last night, and we got time, but we're getting a little bit, let's just say, focused. Getting a lot of multi-species fish. That's just the way weed fishing is. Northern pike, perch, big catfish just now, and catfish can imitate a big walleye and get you really excited and then let you down right at the last minute. But we're gonna stay at it. We're gonna plug this out hard, and hopefully we get some of them 6-7 pounders go we know are here.
Wrong time, wrong place, wrong fish. Even though it's a dandy.
We continued to catch fish after fish, but struggled to find keepers. It was getting late in the day, but these guys refused to give up as we found our 4th keeper, one shy of our legal limit.
We only need one more. We got less than an hour to go. We'd like to get one decent fish. We have 4 keepers in there and about 20 non-keepers. We're still running right at the edge of the weeds. Get too shallow, you're inside the weeds. Get too far out, you're outside of the weeds.
We fished right until the last minute, but just couldn't find that one last legal fish. With tournament fishing, it's all about catching the right fish, and we just couldn't quite get that done today. After a long day on the water, we headed back to a crowded weigh-in full of teams and fans anxious to see the day's results.
We're here at Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan on the beautiful St. Mary's River for the Cabela's Masters Walleye Circuit Combined Cabela's National Team Championship Tournament. We have 201 boats out there that are fishing in this tournament. We have, some of them are in the NTC alone, some of them are in the MWC alone, and some of them are fishing in both tournaments. They're fishing from 7 o'clock, and then we have 4 flights. They'll come in at 3, 3:30, 4, and 4:30. That's a 2-day tournament for the MWC, and the flights flip-flop. So if boat number 1 went out this morning first, they'll go out last tomorrow. Now Saturday is a special day for the Cabela's National Team Championship because the top 25 All-Americans fish off for a brand new Ranger boat and $30,000 cash. So they're on their own on the water. There's no other teams other than the top 25 out of all the 190 teams that are here with the National Team Championship.
Having a tournament of this size on the St. Mary's River was quite the experience, and the teams and the fans alike seemed to enjoy the uniqueness of this fishery. Special thanks to Ken and Dan for letting me tag along on this beautiful day here in Michigan's Out of Doors.
Well, with the archery season being only a couple of weeks away, the youth season is before that. Well, we thought we'd take a little time on this week's show to talk a little deer. Actually, learn how to talk a little deer. When it comes to deer hunting, we have some hardcore folks here in the state, and we have some weekend warriors. But one thing we can all agree on is that we wish we could talk to the deer better than what we do. Tom Richardson is a lifelong deer hunter and someone who does a lot of seminars on calling whitetails. So we sat down with him recently to get some tips on calling deer. This week we will be primarily talking cover calls and just wet your whistle for next week, where we get even more specific on the art of talking to whitetails.
One of the ways I become invisible is I learned to imitate the animals in the woods other than deer. For example, what's the noisiest animal in the woods? Usually squirrels, turkeys for that matter. If I know where the deer are bedded, if I'm coming in, as long as they don't see me, they'll associate any sound with a flock of turkeys. So before I head into the woods, now this is a scratch box, not a lot of guys use them. It makes a little different sound. For guys that don't use that, I mean, anything will work. You know, just give the impression of feeding turkeys. They'll just cluck. This purr. A turkey makes that sound when he's content. Now, turkeys are the guardians of the woods. Nothing gets by a turkey. Deer hear this. And a lot of your bigger bucks, you'll notice, at night are actually running with a flock of turkeys. But when deer hear that purr, all is well. So any noise you make heading in, they'll associate with this. One of the other calls I use to cover my tracks, how many times have you seen squirrels chasing each other around? I mean, all bow hunters know about squirrels. Squirrels are your friend. They're not a pest. I use this in 2 ways. Say I'm running late after work. I want to get out there. Just before I head out there, of course, the leaves are crunchy. Deer hear that, they hear any noise I'm making, they think I'm just a couple of squirrels running around. Now, I've also called in deer using this call in combination with a pocket full of stones. I've called in, I don't know how many deer, there's just a pocket full of rocks. You're sitting out there, nothing's happening, it's about time acorns are dropping. I just start throwing rocks, 1 second, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, I'll just drop them. And as I do, every once in a while, I give the impression the squirrels run around treetops. They hear these rocks hitting the ground. Mainly does and fawns will come in, but that's what you want, and we're gonna get to that in just a minute. I'm gonna fast forward to, again, cover calls. Okay, say your calling works. You called in, every deer in the woods is now right underneath you. You got 100 deer underneath you, 200 deer underneath you. And it's dinner time, it's dark. What are you gonna do now? I hear that a lot. Okay. what I do is I'll go to this call right here. Which is a red-tailed hawk. Of course, a hawk is not going to take a deer, but it's a predator, it's a raptor, and it makes them nervous. As long as they don't associate that with a human, I don't care what they do as long as they move off. If that one doesn't work, I'll go to this one right here. And you can exaggerate this call, make it loud. You want to make them nervous, and then they'll move off. If that one doesn't work, take off your boot and whip it at them because it's time for supper and I'm going home. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. If I'm in the corn, a lot of times, I like hunting the corn with a bow. Crows and they're feeding all the time. I can use that if I'm in a tree. I make any noise by accident. Same with the squirrel call. If I drop my water jug, I'll light that squirrel call up. I've seen deer that I've actually dropped something because I do that all the time. I'll light up that call, just, you know, squirrel moving around, and their heads will drop right down. They'll flip their tail back and forth and go right back to eating. It'll go right back to ease. And one other one a lot of guys don't use is this. And this is a pheasant call. Every time a pheasant cackles like that, it'll flap its wings without exception. So it's making noise. Now, I'm wider than the average bear. So until they start making 36-inch rows in the corn, I got to have something that'll cover my tracks when I'm trying to slip through there. So it's, is a pheasant taking off, or is a pheasant it'll just rear back and flap its wings and cackle. That'll cover any noise I'm making. So, you know, this is just kind of opening the door for you guys. You know, there's other things you can use. These are just some of those. I'm just kind of going through quickly some of the stuff I do. All right, now let's get down to the meat and potatoes. Calling deer is absolutely deadly. Deer speak all year round. Now, what is the Achilles heel of pretty much every man alive? Women. Where the girls are, the boys will be sooner or later. And what is Achilles' heel of women? Kids. You need to play, you need to learn the communication of does and fawns. Does and fawns talk back and forth all the time. They're in family groups. The matriarch right down to her siblings, down to their siblings. Now, I'm gonna give a few quick demonstrations on how this actually works. If you ever, next time observe the deer. Listen to them. Listen to what they're doing. I use different calls, by the way, because I don't want to sound like the same deer every time. I won't take all these with me, of course, but I'll take a couple different ones, a couple grunts, mainly a lot of fawn balls. I'll take 3 or 4 different fawns with me, then a couple cover calls. If you ever watched, especially early season, a family group, you got the doe that I call the beacon call. She's feeding along, but every 30 seconds, 45 seconds, she'll which is 1.5 seconds. The thing to calling, and you got to remember this, is the volume, intensity, duration, and emotion. All 4 of those come into play because a grunt is not a grunt. I got a philosophy. A man can speak perfect Russian, but unless he knows what he's saying, it doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing with the deer world. For example, when a lost fawn, she'll actually sound like it's called mom. And when you're calling, guys, use your diaphragm. Bring the air up from your diaphragm. Keep the sides of your mouth open. You have a lot more control over your calls. Now, if you listen, when that doe answers that fawn, there's a little tail at the end of this call. Because you've seen, fawns are playing, they're not paying attention to mom. Mom wanders off. Fawn looks up. Mom's gone. Hear that urgency? You want to put yourself in that fawn's position. Become the deer. And when mom answers, there's a tail on the end of that as well. That's a social call. Fawn in distress. There's a lot to this, so I really got to, you know, just hit on the finer points of calling. So you guys, like I say, I can open the door for you. Build on this, experiment a little bit. You'll make 1,000 mistakes and learn 1,000 lessons, but in the end, once you master these calls and deer vocalizations, you're going to be amazed.
So there you have it, part 1 of talking to whitetails. Next week we will get some more info on how to talk to fawns, does, and of course talking to bucks. Plus a call Tom says you have to use with extreme caution. We'll see you next week.
For our next story, I was able to highlight a Michigan-based spoon company in the Marquette area. You may remember a couple of weeks back we showed you some lake trout fishing out of the Marquette area where we actually used these spoons and were told about this local Michigan business. The Fin Tackle Company has been around for quite some time, and recently it was purchased by a couple in the Marquette area with a passion for big lake fishing. A little while back, I sat down with the new owners to learn a little more about the Fin Tackle Company and how it all got started. Fin Tackle Company originated as Fin Company back in 1954. So next year we'll be looking at a 60-year anniversary. And charter boat captain on the west end of the Upper Peninsula created the spoons essentially to help him put his clients on more fish, not necessarily, you know, as a business. And he tried and tinkered and played around with many different shapes and sizes and bends and colors and, you know, you name it, he was always down at the dock, you know, with a spoon on the end of his pole, you know, going back and forth in the water to test out the action. And if it wasn't something he liked, he put it in a garbage can, went back to the drawing board and looked for another option. The fishing industry has undoubtedly changed over the last 50 years, and even though the shapes, sizes, and colors of spoons are just about endless, you'd be surprised how much of the production process is still done by hand. I mean, you look at a spoon, you go through a spoon aisle and you see ladder back stickers, you see, you know, horizontal glow tapes, you see, you know, sticker type eyes on those spoons. You know, there's not machinery out there that I'm aware of anyway that puts those on. So all those are put on by hand, you know, right down here on a workbench, you know, after work, you know, after dinner and family time, you know, so there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. The lure industry certainly has changed in the amount of time that fin spoons have been, you know, part of the market. Back in the early days when Gus was the owner, it was silver, hammered gold, gold, and your copper and your gold smooth or hammered, you know, and maybe putting a fluorescent green tape on the edge or something like that to really give you one of those highlighted type spoons. You know, now, you know, like I said earlier, we've got about 160 different spoons to choose from. And, you know, back then it was a dozen spoons at the most, just in case you lost a few that day snagging bottom. You know, so times have really changed, and you go down any spoon aisle at any sport shop now, and it's pretty overwhelming the number of spoons that there are out there to choose from. The Fin Tackle Company is a family business in just about every way possible. Most of the work done on these spoons happens right here in Brad's home, where he, his wife, and their 2 children all pitch in, hoping to one day make the Fin Tackle Company a part of every angler's tackle box. It's a really nice feeling when, you know, something you've created as a family, you know, you see posted on somebody's website or their Facebook page that they've caught a fish, you know, on something that you've created, you know, here in your shop. And, you know, to kind of share that with the family and have my daughters walking around and, you know, having their Fin Tackle Company shirts on, you know, on a business that we own and that we operate, you know, here in Marquette. It really means something special to us, and you know, hopefully we've been doing it a long time, and it's something that they can, once they get a little bit older, you know, really start helping a little bit more. And they really enjoy it. They like coming down here, and they use it as an excuse to extend their bedtime, you know, sometimes. So, but it means a lot to my wife and I to be able to do this and, you know, show our kids, you know, what hard work, you know, is really about, and kind of chasing a dream of getting into that fishing industry. Special thanks to Brad and his family for inviting me into their home to learn more about the Fin Tackle Company, and also for giving some insight on what goes into making a quality spoon.
Thanks for joining us this week for Michigan Out of Doors. If you missed any part of this week's show or you'd like to see something over again, you can always do that on our website at michiganoutofdoorstv.com. Speaking of online, you can also catch us on Facebook at Michigan Out of Doors TV and on our new Twitter account. Lots of fun stuff coming up over the next few weeks, including the goose hunting opener.
Well, that's right, Jenny. We did have a pretty good goose opener, and that is on tap for next week's show. We're also going to have part 2 in our deer calling series, and then we're going to do a little fishing with Michigan's own Mark Zona. You will not want to miss next week's show. And hey, if you're looking for something to do this weekend, don't forget September the 15th is the opener of the small game season. So for all of you that will be hitting the woods, good luck out there, and hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Rosie Brothers. Located in Dryden, Michigan, Rosie Brothers has been serving Michigan for over 40 years. Specializing in outdoor needs, Rosie Brothers features Kubota tractors and equipment for use in farm, home, or commercial needs. On the web at rosiebrosinc.com. By Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises of Munising, exploring Lake Superior's Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore with its sandstone cliffs, caves, waterfalls, and lighthouses. Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises on the web at picturedrocks.com. By Propane, exceptional energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas energy in homes, farms, and businesses across our great state. Learn more at usemichiganpropane.com. By Meijer, a destination for hunting, fishing, and camping. From bug spray and tents to GPS and gas, Meijer has nearly everything you need to take on nature and get you there. Meijer. Closed captioning is brought to you by Propane, exceptional energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas to outdoor enthusiasts across our great state.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout